Alright, so we've assembled the basic scene and let's set up a render. Okay, so I want to bring in the roughly the final lighting that I want into this. So what we can do is initially I had assigned a material through the shopnet. So let's make a change. We'll create a material network, which is sort of the more modern context. I am personally not a huge fan of the material network for one reason is I usually tend to use multiple render engines and the material network gets very confusing because if you press tab and then if you try to you will get everything in one place and it gets a little difficult to differentiate. Like if you press tab and type color correct, you will end up getting we have 3 different or 4 different color correction nodes. Okay, and it gets a little difficult which one do you want. And so the problem is especially with Arnold and Mantra, the names are very similar, so it becomes very problematic. The nice thing with Octane is that everything some of them start off with the word tool, so it's easier, and Redshift starts off with RS, so that's easy. But with Arnold it gets very confusing. Also the list becomes too big, so since there's no way to filter this, it becomes unless you create a network here as well and then go inside it, then it's fine. But at this level, I find it a little confusing. Anyway, so we'll take a glossy shader. So material glossy, and we'll call it basic. And we'll just have to replace this. So we'll take everything. So we have the height field, the rocks and the plants, and electric pole, bus stop, and bus. Okay. And just change it to basic, and then this will keep here itself. We can get rid of the material, but the render node I want to keep here itself because the ROPNet is sort of looking at that. Okay, so this is perfectly fine. Okay, so let's see if we just if we activate the render, what we get. Yeah, I think this is fine. So alright, so the first thing I want to do is I just want to come into the material network and let's get rid of the specular. Okay, so it won't shine as much, or we'll keep a little bit and just blur it. Okay, the second thing is I want to change the HDR that we are using, because as I had mentioned earlier, I can't use this because I can't distribute it. Essentially that's the problem. Okay, because this is not this is a commercial HDR. Okay, so I can't share this with anyone. Okay, so what I want to do is I downloaded another one from HDR Haven, which I'm pretty sure I can distribute. I'll put a link to it in a notepad, so you can always look at that. And this is a nice little sunset HDR, which is called that. So I need to make a few changes. Firstly, get the gamma down to 1, and we will just rotate it around. So keep it 0. Yeah, just spin it till you get it from this direction. Yeah, this is good. We want it from here. You can increase the gamma a little bit so you can get a little more color. Don't increase it too much, it'll just burn the whole thing out. Okay, so get it to about 1.2. 1.2 is fine. Yeah, so you get a decent contrast between the cliffs and the objects in the foreground. Now another thing that I usually like to do with something like this is the problem right now is we don't have a foreground background separation. That's a big issue. So the way to do it is I usually create boxes and block out the if I want the foreground in darkness, the best way to do it is you just block the light coming into the foreground. So what I've done is I created these 2 boxes, which I'll just show you. It's nothing, there's just a box. So if I open this up, you'll see this big giant box which is blocking out the light. I think it's too fat, so I'm going to just make it thinner. It doesn't really matter. And then what we can do is we can just come into the material network, create another glossy shader, assign it to this, and just make it black. So if we look at it, it should have, call it black. So what this should do is if I turn on IPR, see, so what happens is it sort of blocks out the foreground because there's just a black object behind it. You're blocking out the light coming in. And I have another object, in the back as well. We'll give it the same material. Yeah, so I can just do like a Control C and Control V. And then if I just hit a reload, so the second object is just on the other side. It's like that. So we're building like a cross, so we don't have any light coming in over there. So if I just do a snapshot of this and I'll hit reload, so it'll load in the other object as well. Yeah, so there you go. So what you've done is you effectively blocked out everything in the foreground. So now you're getting a nice little separation between the foreground and the background. Now along with this, what you can also do is let's do one thing. Let's just come into the render, and I'm going to just lower the exposure a little bit. Yeah, because I think the light is too bright. Or let's just do one thing. Let's lower the light intensity. So I'll take the power and bring it down. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, this is a pretty decent. Okay, another thing you can do is we can also come into the material net. If we take the material that has been assigned to these objects, the light blockers, and then if we change the color of these, you can use it to sort of give some additional color to your foreground. You need to have GI bounces on, so our diffuse bounces are on, which is a good thing. But this is also a nice way to, if you want to, give some kind of foreground background separation based on color, then you can actually use this technique to just, give it some color. Yeah, so this is a decent enough result. Let's try one last thing, which is let's see what post-processing does. Yeah, I don't think so. Let's also try to increase the saturation. We don't, and adjust the gamma. Yeah, I think this is fine. So it gives you a decent bit of separation between the foreground and background, which is what I needed anyways. All right, so this is as far as our basic render is concerned. So what we'll do next is we'll start modeling the clouds.